Winter coughs were not treated as illnesses to suppress, but as conditions to manage, shorten, and prevent from turning dangerous. Older generations, especially those who lived through wartime shortages and long rural winters, relied on systems rather than single remedies. What follows is a practical record of how they did it, stripped of folklore exaggeration and focused on methods that were actually used, observed, and passed down. This is the kind of knowledge that mattered when pharmacies were far away, money was tight, and winter lasted months. They controlled indoor air before they treated the body. Dry winter air was understood as an irritant long before the term humidity became common. Homes were deliberately kept slightly moist using kettles simmering near heat sources, shallow pans of water placed behind stoves, or damp cloths hung near sleeping areas. This prevented the throat from drying out overnight, which reduced the harsh barking cough that often followed cold nights. Applied today, the same principle works by adding moisture to the air in sleeping spaces, especially at night, to prevent coughing fits triggered by dryness rather than infection. They managed heat without overheating the lungs. Older households avoided extreme indoor heat. Rooms were kept cool but stable, with sleeping areas often colder than living spaces. Overheating was believed to weaken the chest and dry the lungs, making coughs worse. Thick bedding provided warmth without hot air. The practical lesson is maintaining a steady, moderate room temperature while keeping the body warm through layers rather than blasting heat, which still aggravates winter coughs today. They treated coughs through the stomach, not the throat. Warm liquids were taken slowly and regularly, not as comfort drinks but as daily maintenance. Broths made from bones, roots, and onions were common because they soothed irritation and kept the body hydrated without shocking it. Cold drinks were avoided entirely during winter coughs. Even water was taken lukewarm. In modern terms, this means avoiding ice-cold beverages during respiratory irritation and prioritizing warm fluids that reduce throat tension and coughing reflexes. So they used fat as a protective barrier, not as a cure. Rendered animal fats were widely used externally during winter illnesses. Just a small amount rubbed into the chest and back, well, it created a warming layer that reduced tightness and nighttime coughing. This wasn't really about absorption, but more about insulation. The practice limited heat loss through the chest wall and kept muscles relaxed. Even today, the principle can be applied by simply keeping the chest and neck consistently warm at night instead of relying on sudden heat or topical stimulants. They respected nighttime breathing conditions, that's for sure. Sleeping position mattered. A lot of older folks slept slightly elevated during winter coughs, using extra blankets or folded bedding instead of pillows. This helped reduce mucus pooling and nighttime coughing. Windows were often cracked just a bit, even in cold weather, to allow fresh air to circulate. Stagnant air was considered pretty harmful. The practical takeaway here is improving airflow while avoiding direct drafts and adjusting your sleep position to cut down on nighttime irritation. They relied on steam as a mechanical tool. Steam was used deliberately, not just casually. Pots of hot water were set in enclosed spaces to help loosen congestion, especially before bed. Inhaling steam helped calm irritated airways and reduce those coughing spasms. No additives were required. The real value came from the warmth and moisture alone. If you think about it today, this means using controlled steam exposure to relax the airways, rather than depending on scented or chemical additives. So they used honey and fermented foods sparingly and, well, pretty strategically. Honey wasn't something folks ate all the time. It was taken in small amounts before sleep just to coat the throat and help cut down on nighttime coughing. Fermented foods like sauerkraut or lightly fermented vegetables were eaten mostly during winter since they believed these helped with digestion and, older generations really thought good digestion was tied to better respiratory health. The practical takeaway for us today is to time soothing foods before rest, rather than just eating them at random throughout the day. They avoided constant throat clearing and cough suppression. Coughing was allowed, but controlled. Excessive throat clearing was discouraged because it irritated tissues further. Folks were taught to cough deliberately, then rest the throat with warmth and fluids. Silence and rest were considered part of treatment. In modern life, this means avoiding constant coughing or talking through irritation, and just allowing the throat time to recover. They understood that prevention mattered more than rescue. Scarves were worn indoors and outdoors to protect the neck and upper chest. Sudden exposure to cold air was avoided, especially after sweating. Clothes were changed immediately if damp. These habits reduced the frequency of winter coughs more effectively than treating them after they appeared. Applied today, this really reinforces the value of thermal regulation and moisture control over reactive treatments. They treated winter coughs as a seasonal condition, not an emergency. Older generations expected winter coughs and prepared for them. Their methods focused on reducing severity and duration rather than eliminating symptoms overnight. This long-view approach prevented minor irritation from becoming pneumonia or chronic chest problems. The modern equivalent is, well, resisting quick fixes and focusing on consistent daily practices that protect respiratory health throughout winter. This knowledge survives because it worked. It was shaped by necessity, observation, and repetition across generations who just couldn't afford mistakes. If you found value in preserving and applying this kind of hard-earned history, subscribe to Warfield Prepper Chronicles, share this guide with others who respect practical knowledge, and keep these methods alive where they belong, in real homes, real winters, and real preparation.